on sports.
I apologize in advance if I am out of line here.
Brace yourselves, boys. We're going in.
Am I hallucinating here? Just what in the hell do you think you are doing?
I can't believe you.
I'm not reading, I'm just looking at the pictures. Welcome to the cold, hard truth on sports.
Welcome, everyone, to another great week here of the Cold Hard Truth on Sports. I am your host, Matthew Long. Big week for some in the boxing world. We saw probably one of the top 3 pound-for-pound boxers in the world fighting this weekend in Saul Canelo Alvarez. We're halfway through the month of December, and a good chunk of the bowl games have taken place. Some are actually underway now, so I'll give you updates on what is going on in around college football bowl games. I'll look back at some of the bowl games that have already happened, as well as previewing some to come. And college basketball has actually been kind of interesting to this point. They also the NBA has been pretty interesting right now. The Lakers and Brooklyn Nets are playing as we speak over on NBA TV. I think it's under 11 minutes left in the fourth quarter. The Lakers are trailing in that game 91-83. So pretty good game over there. College basketball, UCF playing FIU. Looks like in the second half, 11 seconds left in the game, the Bulls are up 82-72. So a lot more going on as well. A good game actually in the third going on, or it was the second quarter, sorry. Going on over into the third quarter. Nebraska is playing Arkansas. That's on the SEC network. Yeah, this game is 8 minutes into the fourth quarter. Arkansas is leading 63-57. Arkansas has been one of those teams in the SEC that's kind of held up there. So it'll be interesting to see which direction they go moving forwards. And again, that's a ladies' basketball. Just so we're clarified. Have some clarification there. But as far as the NFL goes, I mean, we're starting to get some more clarification, getting some resolution, some clarity on what the NFL playoffs are going to look like moving forward. Without a doubt, we can say that the Green Bay Packers will not be a part of those playoffs. Now, some are saying, well, is this necessarily what Green Bay wants? Does this help with their coaching search? Green Bay, with being the team that has fired their head coach first, second, out of all the head coaches that were fired, they've made the least progress. And seeing the team, it doesn't seem to be that it was just Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers' relationship not working out. It doesn't seem to be something as simple as somebody else making play calls. It has came out, as I've reported over the last few years, the condescension, arrogance, and ego that comes from Aaron Rodgers has spilled over into games, and we're talking about towards the beginning of his career when he started getting his starts. He's always held a grudge against Mike McCarthy. Again, as we know, Mike McCarthy was actually with the 49ers before he came over to Green Bay. And he was the one, he selected, he was there, part of the selection of taking Alex Smith first overall. And Aaron Rodgers has made jokes about that, but it's something that clearly has bothered him. It bothered him on draft night, seeing him fall to the bottom of the first round. And even now that Joe Philbin, who had a really good stint there in Green Bay before leaving and becoming a head coach down in Miami for the Dolphins, then subsequently getting fired. He was actually a part of that big mess with Jonathan, what's his name, the offensive lineman. Jonathan Martin. And by the way, just for everyone knowing, Jonathan Martin did end up getting medical or mental health treatment. He did get help. Some at the time, but it was just last year. Around this time, about 1 year ago, I think. He tweeted out some pretty cryptic stuff about his high school and guns and kind of inferring on that he would do some sort of violent act towards people at a high school and towards Richie Incognito and those that have wronged him. And he was found and he was against his own will taken. Again, it wasn't his choice to go. It wasn't to voluntarily go into custody to be observed for mental health, but he had to be clinically put under watch. And obviously that helped him on the way. I don't have any recent update on Jonathan Martin. I will here in the weeks to come. I'll follow back on it, just to update you in the happenings of the dialogue today. But that's obviously among other things that went on down in Miami, which was also a lot of losing. Hard Knocks didn't help. I don't think Hard Knocks has really helped coaches much at all. It's made more coaches look incompetent and soft than it's helped at all. So if I was a head coach, I definitely wouldn't want Hard Knocks in my building. Man, you could see, like, seeing the Browns on Hard Knocks this year really help you understand why both the head coach and offensive coordinator were fired. But we'll give you an update on the NFL playoffs. But as we do that, before we do that, I just want to thank all of you that are tuned in over on Spreaker app. That's Spreker. Spreaker. You can go download the free app. The Play Store, Apple Store, Apple Cart, whatever it is, wherever you get your apps from. Go over there, download it free. You can listen to the full show unabated through the Spreaker app, the live version. You can listen to the podcast version over there. Thank you over on Facebook for all of you that tune in each and every week over on the video broadcast. I've updated some of my stuff here. We got the Christmas tree up. We got a wreath up. You can see some of the ornaments that are up here. We got Shaq. I think it's in a Blue Chips jersey, actually. Muhammad Ali, Nolan Ryan, Kobe, Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, Elway. Was that Mario Lemieux? Emmitt Smith, Richard Petty, Dan Marino. Yeah, a bunch of guys up on the reef here, up the top. We got over here on the Christmas tree over here. Cal Ripken updated that, so have some of the little bit of the festivities now because of the date that Christmas actually falls on, which is a Tuesday. There will not be a show on Christmas Day. Now, we are working on Uh-oh.
Welcome to Blog Talk Radio. Please enter your host PIN. When finished, press the pound key.
Sorry, we're having a little bit of a technical issue here. Bear with me here for a moment while we get this resolved.
I'm sorry, but I did not hear you press at least 4 digits. Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
Yeah, this is some of the magic of live radio. Sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. So, hang in there with me here for a second. For the connection fell off for one of our platforms that we broadcast on, particularly the one that takes phone calls. So I will be bringing.
Welcome to Blog Talk Radio. Please enter your host PIN.
The co-host on here shortly, and this is over on Blog Talk Radio. So,
to start your show now, press 1.
Since it appears you're calling back into a live show, we are reconnecting you now.
Beautiful. All right, we're back on here on Blog Talk Radio. Thank you for hanging in there. They a little bit of technical difficulty there. We dropped the signal on Blog Talk, but those of you over on Facebook and Spreaker that listen live over there on those two mediums got to hear the magic of what happens when one part of the show F's up. So we have to bring Blog Talk back up. That is where we have our phone lines, and I will go to them now to welcome in my co-host. He is author of the P.K. Frazier novel series, which makes a great gift. You could get them in a couple days going over to Amazon and just buy the whole set. There's 3 of them right now. Well written, good storylines. P.K. Frazier it's kind of like a sports historic novel, and I know reading it for the first time, I made the mistake because I thought PK Frazier was a real person. And I was confused why I hadn't heard of him before because I had been at some of the games he was calling. PK Frazier's not real. Just so you don't make the same mistake I did. But it's a great series. Go get all three of the books that are out now. Just go over to Amazon, type in PK Frazier, or type in Kevin Crest. You'll be able to find it. But he's also the editor for golf on the Cold Hard Truth on Sports website, as well as one of our premier contributors for college sports. Again, he is Kevin Crest. How are you doing this evening, Kevin?
I'm doing great. Interesting time of year. The NFL has gotten very interesting, and we don't talk a lot about NFL. We talk a lot about college, but wow, those that 54-51 Rams Chiefs game seems very far in the rearview mirror, don't you think?
Yeah.
I mean, 12-9 last night. The Eagles over the Rams, low-scoring game. Wow, it's like December hits and the offenses grind to a halt.
And that's a crazy thing. So
there's not a.
The NFL is different than any pro sport. Yes, out of all pro sports, they may have the least amount of games in their season, but it is a long, methodical season. In college, the most you play is, 13 games? Maybe 14 with the playoff system now?
Yeah.
In the NFL, you have...
The finalists will play 14. Everybody else plays 12, 13 games.
Yeah, in the NFL, you play 16 regular season games, and then you could have 3 to 4 games in the postseason. And I'm telling you, when you get to this time of year, because the seasons really break down, pre-Thanksgiving, post-Thanksgiving, and then really playoffs. That's really where it starts to break down. Still got two more weeks left in the NFL. There's no more Thursday night games. Last week was the first week with no Thursday night games. It's the time of year you start seeing NFL football on Saturdays, which is always kind of weird, especially for those who have fantasy rosters. This is the time of year that people were either in their playoffs, depending on the size of their league, or in their Super Bowl. This week is usually the Super Bowl for most teams this week. But we've seen, as of last week, there's literally 18 teams that mathematically qualified for we're still in qualification for a wild card spot outside the 8 division champions. Now, not so much. The Bucs lose in another game they could have very well won, and they're done for the season.
Yeah, a lot of teams are out now. I mean, you've got basically 7. There's 9 teams in the NFC still alive. The Panthers are on life support after Monday night. They're close to being gone. They're 6-8. It'll take a miracle for them to get in. Although the Eagles and Redskins, who are right now the 7th and 8th teams, play each other in Week 17. So one of them has to lose. So with one loss there, that means that the Panthers are still mathematically alive, but I'm not sure Cam Newton can throw the football. So that's going to be a problem for them. The AFC, it's, I think there's still 10 teams alive in the AFC. I mean, the Browns are still mathematically in it, but they have to have a tie. Two teams have to tie for the Browns to have a shot. I mean, you talk about the thinnest of mathematical, non-eliminations. It's the Browns, because they have to hope for a tie, I believe, by the Texans and Colts in the last week of the season for them to get in, and then they have to win out.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that's going to happen. That's not going to happen.
What a way for them to end the
right
season.
Now,
I mean, they fire their head coach, and then they win 4 of their last 5 games.
Yeah, Greg Williams done a great job. I mean, that team, and think about it, they probably should have beaten the Steelers in Week 1. They had a bad kick. They probably should have beaten Oakland. I mean, that team right now could be 7-5-1 as easily as, or 8-6 as easily as where they are, which would put them in a pretty good playoff position. But they get to decide what happens, though, because the Ravens have to win out. They're a half game behind the Steelers. The Steelers travel to New Orleans this week. There's a lot of drama there at the back end of the playoff picture. The Chargers can still get home field advantage. I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs, they look good, but they've got to travel to the Seahawks this week. I mean, Seattle's a really tough place to play. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes, in his first year as quarterback, second year with the team, has never had to face that up there. So there's a lot of good drama left in the NFL. I mean, this is not nobody has home field locked up yet. The Bears have the NFC North locked up. And that's it. That's the only division that's been locked up. If I'm not mistaken, the Patriots haven't locked up the AFC East yet. The AFC North is still up for grabs. The South is up for grabs. The West is up for grabs. The NFC East, the Cowboys kind of, you think they're going to win it, but they haven't wrapped it up yet. The AFC South, yes, the Saints have wrapped up the AFC South. That's
NFC South.
NFC South.
Yeah.
That's wrapped up, right? And the NFC West is wrapped up. So you've got 3 divisions wrapped up, but you don't know. You don't know if they've got home field. It's not all locked up yet, and with 2 weeks left, ordinarily somebody's locked something up, and so you don't have anything locked up, and so it's going to be very interesting. And a couple of years ago, the NFL went to divisional games at the end of the season, which makes things very interesting. So you've got these divisional games, the reason that's important is that's the first tiebreaker in a division race. And I know this because when I wrote my 3rd book, Offsetting Penalties, I had to really study the tiebreaker situation because the whole idea of the book, and I'm not going to spoil it, it's a big deal. Okay, so tiebreakers are a big deal, and so this year they may come into play more than they have in past years because you've got a lot of teams that are going to be really closely separated by tiebreakers. I mean, you've got all these 6 and 7 teams. 7 and 7 teams, 8 and 6 teams fighting for playoff berths, and so we'll have to see how those tiebreakers work out. And even at the top of it, the Chiefs have the tiebreakers. They have like 2 tiebreakers over the Chargers. They have the same record right now, and so the Chargers cannot be tied with the Chiefs, or the Chiefs will get the division and the home field as it stands right now. And so it's really interesting. You got the Texans 10-4. They're still fighting for that home field. I mean, as we said, the Chiefs have to go to Seattle. Man.
Yep. And you know the crazy thing
right there, don't you think?
About the Patriots this year is this is one of the few years in their history. Not only do they have back-to-back losses in their season, but they've had back-to-back losses twice. They lost in week 2 and week 3, and then they've lost these past 2 weeks to the Dolphins and the Steelers. Now, we could probably pencil them in for a win against the Bills and to end with the Jets. So it's like should be the easiest road to victory, although the Jets always play tough the last few weeks of the season to try to spoil teams' seasons. So, in the again, they're last in that division in the Jets are last in the division in standings. So, they only have 4 wins on the season. However, it was actually a pretty close game at points the last time they played. Again, that was just a month ago, not even a month ago. The final score was 27-13. So it was only a couple scores difference in the game. We'll see what comes of that. But I'm going to say this now. If the Patriots don't have home field advantage in the playoffs, I do not think the Patriots can win the Super Bowl.
Well, they never have. I mean, they've never gotten to the Super Bowl when they've had to play an opening round playoff game. And right now, I mean, this could change, but right now they're the 3 seed. No, they're the 3 seed. And even if they host, they may end up, they may end up hosting the Chargers. All right, I mean, so you've got a really tough road for them. I mean, and by the way, Brady looked 40 years old the other night, right? I mean, the other day, a Sunday afternoon, late.
Every bit of it.
40 years old. Gronkowski's done. The guy's toast. He can't even run. I mean, he can't get open. And so, I mean, I don't think this is the Patriots' year. I mean, it's that thing's coming to an end. They're a good team. They're not a great team, but they have no speed on offense. They have very little defense of, imagination right now. It looks to me like Belichick and Brady are playing out the string, and I hope Robert Kraft is asleep at the switch, because it's about time to turn the page on that dynasty. I mean, and don't get me wrong, what a great run. I mean, they've managed free agency, the salary cap, everything. They have done it, as an organization, have done such a ridiculously good job in the last 15 years, 17 years. It's unprecedented in this era, but you can see that, I mean, it can only go on so long. I mean, Tom Brady can't play till he's 50, and Belichick can't coach till he's 80. So, I mean, it's gonna come to an end. But that team can still cause problems for people. But I think the other night showed that the Steelers figured it out. And the Steelers, it's interesting. Bill Parcells has always used to make the statement that the most desperate team wins in December. And the other afternoon, the Steelers are more desperate. The Steelers had to win that game.
Yeah,
because the Ravens had already won.
So
the Steelers
and the Browns
if the
have
Steelers
been
had
winning.
Lost that game, they'd have dropped to 8th, right? 8th in the playoff seedings.
Yeah. As
it was, they stayed at 4, and so we'll see what happens the next 2 weekends. As you said, the Saturday games start this weekend, and my team, the Redskins, miraculously, I don't know how, are still in the playoff hunt. They're 7th, but the Eagles are 6th, and they play the Eagles the last week of the season. And if the Vikings stumble, there's a chance that the winner of that Eagles-Redskins game goes to the playoffs, which is crazy because those teams were both left for dead 3 weeks ago. So we'll see what happens. But it's exciting because right now, all we have right now is a bunch of meaningless bowl games on the college side. Till we get later in December, when the good games start. I mean,
speaking of fairly meaningless games, the NFL has announced the 2019 Pro Bowl players. The honorary, because they do honorary coaches now. The 4 coaches that were nominated for the game. It's a Hall of Famer, 5-time Pro Bowler, Hall of Fame. Jim Kelly will be there. He'll be one of them. 8-time Pro Bowler, also a Hall of Famer, Emmitt Smith. Hall of Famer and 8-time Pro Bowler, Brian Urlacher. And 9-time Pro Bowler, DeMarcus Ware will serve as the 2019 league captains, coaches. And they've done like a draft over the last few years to kind of shake things up.
Can I say this right now, Matt?
Yeah.
Who cares?
Our listeners care. They're fans of the teams. I mean, isn't it? I mean, 29 of the players selected to the Pro Bowl today are first-time Pro Bowlers, including 6 rookies. Saquon Barkley, Michael Dickinson, Darwin James. Darwin James, by the way, he should be the Rookie of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year, hands down. Phillips Lindsay, the running back from the Chargers, or Denver. By the way, Philip Lindsay, I talked to him. The Denver Broncos. Sorry about that. I talked to Lindsay at the Shrine. The Shrine game. The Shrine game last year.
Undrafted out of Colorado.
Oh yeah, but the reason. Okay, so he's an interesting story. He's undrafted because he's like 5'8".
Fascinating story.
Yeah, he's like 5'8". But if you ever, and see, this is how I don't get how they don't see the talent there. Like, with a guy that has heart and grit and is willing to work, how don't you draft that? It's like, I just saw so much upside with the guy. But I said the kid, my comment at the time was, he's a good kid. I think he's going to do well in the NFL. But I don't see anybody drafting him, primarily because of his size. But Broncos, again, he worked out there in Colorado Springs at the camp out there. Brandon Gallup, he was out there, as well as Derice Fontaine was out there in Colorado with him. They were all part of that the group that was out there training for the combine and stuff together. And Philip Lindsay has just done well for the Broncos. Quentin Nelson, who's a guard, a first-round draft pick for the Colts, and cornerback Denzel Ward for the Cleveland Browns. Literally, rookies, 6 rookies made it. And 29 of them are first-time Pro Bowlers. That just, again, this isn't a season that we've seen so much turnover as far as injuries. Like last season, the last couple of seasons had been plagued by injuries at the quarterback position. Maybe the way that the rules change is you can't touch the quarterback or really hit them the way that you used to. Maybe that's helped. But at the same time, I mean, obviously, to see this many fresh faces being becoming Pro Bowlers, I mean, that's a good thing. I mean, that just goes to show that there's parity in the NFL at all levels.
That's fine, but they need to just do away with the Pro Bowl. I mean, the other three major sports have their all-star games in the middle of the season. The NFL is the only one that has it at the end of the season. And who cares? I mean, the Super Bowl's over. I mean, hell, regular season football games are turning into flag football. Why even watch the Pro Bowl? I mean, it's not something that, you know, I think is needed anymore. I just don't, and the players don't play. I mean, the players that played in the Super Bowl don't play, so you don't get the best players. And I haven't watched the Pro Bowl in 20 years. I mean, I just don't watch it. It's no interest to me.
Since you brought it up, the players on the losing team, each player gets $34,000 for being on the team and losing.
Oh, I get that.
The winners get $67,000. So,
yeah, but that's only because ESPN or whoever pays an ungodly amount of money to carry it when it's nothing. I mean, come on. I mean, it's like it's also.
So you don't. So is it? You don't think it's necessary to watch All-Star games? Period. Or is it? Or is it that they should just do away with who the All-Stars are?
I think you can name people as, you know, Pro Bowlers. There's another name to it. I'm talking about the NFL now, because the other sports play in the season, and so you've got the players who are playing well, and plus the other sports don't have the risk of injury that the NFL does.
That's why they play it after the season.
I mean, right, but you still, if they actually played a football game, you could still get injured. I mean, in baseball, you know, Aaron Judge isn't going to get injured trying to hit a home run. I mean, you know, or you know, Bryce Harper or Mike Trout or whatever. In hockey, injuries are rare. You know, and plus the NHL All-Star game is like, you know, 14-12. I mean, there's no defense anyway. But it's in the season. So you got the guys that are playing the best at that point in the game. The Pro Bowl just doesn't seem to be. It's kind of outlived its usefulness in a sense. It's like they used to play. You know, the blue-gray football game in college. They had an all-star game on Christmas. They did away with that. The players got too important for that. You couldn't get enough players to play, and so I just feel like it's just not. And they've tried. They're trying, right, to find the right mix, the right formula for this game. And I, you know, they had it in Florida. They moved. I mean, they had it in Hawaii. It was a nice trip for players, and I get all that as an honor for Pro Bowl players. But as a fan and a journalist, it holds no interest for me whatsoever. Because I've watched these guys for, you know, 20 weeks. I mean, why do I want to watch a meaningless game after 20 weeks of watching meaningful football? It makes no sense. And by the way, I don't watch the Major League Baseball All-Star game either. So, you know, I'm pretty much I'm not taking any favorites here. I don't watch that game anymore. I used to watch it before interleague play. I used to watch it because you wouldn't see Clemens facing Bonds, right? Or Kershaw facing Trout. right? You wouldn't see that in the regular season because they didn't have interleague play. And so you'd want to see those guys, right? You would want to see, Hank Aaron facing an American League pitcher that they'd never see unless it was in the World Series.
They still play the blue-gray game, by the way, just so you know.
No, they don't.
Yeah. Pat Mahomes was a blue-gray alum.
On Christmas Day,
It's not on Christmas Day.
They did away with it. There's no blue-gray game.
They don't play it on Christmas Day anymore. They still have a blue-gray all-star game. Yeah.
It's defunct.
Nope.
They did away with it in 2001, 2003. But my point is,
I'm literally looking at the site right now.
Well, I think it's a high school thing. I don't think it's a college thing. It's not a high school. It's not a college thing. But I used to watch the MLB All-Star Game because you had matchups you wouldn't see otherwise. And when they went to interleague play, that took some of the novelty out of those matchups. The NHL All-Star Game, as I said, is a travesty. The NBA All-Star Game is a total. They might as well just have a jump shooting or a horse contest, right? There's no defense. So
I mean, what do you want? Okay, so what are you looking for out of an All-Star game?
I don't even want them.
I mean, no. Obviously, it's clear you don't want them. But what are you looking for out of them? I mean, are you looking? We can agree it's probably a step above the Harlem Globetrotters.
Well, what I would like to see out of an All-Star game are, and they had it back in the day with the Major League All-Stars of baseball when the players, they never saw each other, right? The American League and National League teams never played against each other until they got the World Series, which was rare because you only had two teams getting there. And so they really tried. It was a real contest. It was an actual game. But now these guys see each other all the time. I mean, the NBA they tried to mix it up. NBA, well, let's draft. But I mean, teams play a minimum of 2 times against each other in a season. So the All-Star Game, it's an honor for the players, and I think it's a big event for the city that has it. Because I went to an ABA All-Star Game back in the day in Norfolk, Virginia, and the ABA All-Star Game had like 8 future NBA Hall of Famers. It had Julius Erving and Moses Malone and those guys. It was a spectacle. But from a game, I think the final score was 160 to 152 or something like that. I mean, there was no defense. So I don't want them anymore. I don't watch them. I mean, that's just me. But if they're going to play them, I'd like to see a real game. And none of the with the exception of baseball, because they have to play a real game because a pitcher can't just lob the ball up there or they're going to get killed. They actually play a game. But
also home field advantage for the postseason is on the line in the All-Star game in baseball.
Which is crap.
Because Major League Baseball has created an incentive for them to go out and play. That's crap.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I get that, and I understand why the commissioner did that because they had the game where they ended up in a tie where they called the game. They said, "Well, we don't have any players left. You got to call the game as a tie." And they said, "Well, let's add some incentive to the game. The winner gets home field for the playoffs." Well, why not just give it to the team with the best record because they've got interleague play now? That was before they had total interleague play. Now, the schedules are pretty balanced. So, mean, Boston. I mean, Boston was what 10 games better than everybody else in Major League Baseball, and the team right behind them were the Yankees this year. Can you imagine if the American League hadn't won the All-Star game? Boston would not have had home field advantage after winning 108 games? That's ludicrous. Now, for years, they just alternated, which was just as arbitrary as winning the All-Star game. But, every other sport, if you've got the best record, you host, except the Super Bowl, which is held at a neutral site. But, I just feel like, and I've been around this a long time, I've been watching sports for 55 years, 56 years. Come on. It's fun for the city that hosts. It's an event. But as a journalist and as a fan, why would I watch that? I mean, it's not a game. It's not a contest. It's an exhibition. You're right. You mentioned the Harlem Globetrotters. I might as well just go watch the Harlem Globetrotters. Let's watch the NBA All-Star game. And by the way, the Harlem Globetrotters are way more entertaining because they do all sorts of fun stuff. I watched the Harlem Globetrotters a couple of years ago. It was fantastic.
I actually follow.
But that's just me.
Is a female Globetrotter. So, anyways,
she was. It was fantastic. It was really a lot of fun. But that's getting us off topic of the real athletic endeavors and.
Okay, so to kind of get back on track, but yet still kind of changing the topic in a way. This is actually the 21st year that Football Bowl, the FBS, has had a formal championship structure with at least 2 teams for all 21 of the seasons, where, in the past, Alabama has like 12 national championships they've just claimed, and but it's been 21 years where they've had a formal structure for champions, whether it's been agreed upon or not. Wednesday last week, because it had to happen on Wednesday, the day after the show. Writer for The Athletic broke a story that the NCAA is at the end. There's a 6-year contract. They're at the end of that 6-year contract for negotiations on their TV deals. So they're going to be re-upping on those deals. Now, also what they're interested in is expanding the playoff sooner than expected, per the report, to 8 teams. Now, I know in your book, 8 teams was the playoff system in your book. However,
in my book,
our discussions.
In my book, I went backwards and actually implemented an 8-team system at the time they did the BCF in 1998. So, I was able to go back and implement that 8-team. And, my point on the 8-team, and you're finding it now. Remember, we've talked about this a lot, is as soon as one conference gets left out more than they should, and in this case, it's the Big Ten.
Yep.
The Big Ten, behind the scenes, is now saying, whoa, this has to change. This sucks. We're getting screwed. We've got all the money. And, we're getting left out. So to me, 6 or 8's the number because you've got 5 Power 5 conferences. And actually you've got 6 because you've got 5 Power 5 conferences and Notre Dame. And then this year, Notre Dame got in. That leaves 2 conferences on the outside looking in. Now, the Pac-12 didn't deserve a spot, but the Big Ten, you could make the case that they deserved a spot. There just weren't enough. So, I mean, Ohio State's good enough to win the national championship. And you know me, I'm not an Ohio State fan. I'm not a Big Ten fan.
I disagree with that.
Ohio State definitely has a case.
I don't think they do.
Right?
Well, they have a case to be in a playoff system, but I don't think they have a case to win the national title. I don't think they have the team to or the ability to actually win it this year.
Would you have said that 5 years ago?
5 years ago? We're talking about this year.
They snuck in, but they snuck in as a 4 seed and won the thing when nobody thought they had a shot with a third-string quarterback.
By the way, they won.
My point being,
they won the first.
My point.
They won the first playoff system.
Is that the noise? They've got to expand. They've got to expand.
Well, of course they have to expand. They have to expand. But okay, so let me say this again, because a lot of people are saying, "Oh, we need to have 6, or we need to have 8." So this way, each of the Power 5 conference can have one team representing. Then you could have, 3 at large. 3 wild, quote unquote, wild cards or at large bids in. I'm completely against that. I think that we need to we need to do away with divisions. Divisions are stupid.
And conference championship game.
I'm fine with, honestly, I'm kind of fine with the championship game. I don't mind the championship game.
Oh, hell.
The conferences.
Did you like Clemson?
Listen.
Did you like Clemson drilling Pittsburgh 42-0? I mean, come on.
Well, here's the thing: is
that was a useless football game.
I agree with you. That sounds like a useless football game. But I'm sorry to let me go back to reiterate what I said. We need to do away with divisions. So if we do away with divisions, Clemson is not playing against Pittsburgh. Clemson is playing against Syracuse. Okay? That's who they would have played. And if you remember, that Clemson-Syracuse game was a close game. They won by 4 points.
Yeah, but that was that was at Syracuse, and Clemson lost their starting quarterback.
And this one would be on a neutral field, and Clemson would have their starting quarterback, and Clemson would have Syracuse would have had a win over them, and at least a map to see how they would have done or got close.
They'd have still drilled them. They'd have still drilled Syracuse.
Allegedly.
Wouldn't you have rather had Clemson playing Washington?
Well, what I would rather have is us get rid of the divisions. Every team plays 9 conference games. So round robin. So I think this is where the Big 10, Big 12 by accident is in the right system. I think adding the conference championships makes sense. I like the conference championship. I think divisions are dumb. You don't need divisions. You just want the 2 best teams. The 2 best teams should be playing each other. That's all you're really looking for is the 2 best teams playing each other. And, a round robin system doesn't work to find your conference championship. This is why in basketball they have to have the conference tournament, because at the end of the day you're only playing 9 out of 15, 12, or 16 teams. Like you're only playing really half the conference. So maybe the team that's second best that year you did play and you beat, or you lost to them. But at least then this way the 2 best teams are playing at the end. So I think the conference championship still has weight and makes sense. But where people are starting to wonder, but now you're pushing it out. We could be looking at 15 or 16 games in a college football season, and that's too many games. But I think if we're really trying to do 8 teams, you have to do that.
Give me Okay, give me my 3 minutes here.
Go ahead.
So this year, let's just go this year. Okay. There's lots of noise on your end, by the way. Let's go down through the conferences. Okay. Let's assume you do away with the conference championship and you have an 8-team playoff. Okay. Indulge me here a moment. So you have SEC, right? Alabama, Georgia was the conference championship game, but if you had an 8-team playoff, they're both in. No question, they're both in. Okay. The Big Ten. If there's a conference championship, if there's no conference championship game, Ohio State is in the playoff, and Northwestern's, they're not, but at least Ohio State gets in the playoff. The Big 12, Oklahoma's in no matter what, because Texas is outside the top 10, and so that makes a more compelling game for Oklahoma. The Pac-12 gets in because Washington was, I think, 7th. They're not playing a meaningless game against whoever the hell they played in the Utah. Okay. In the ACC, there was Clemson and everybody else. And then UCF gets in because they deserve to have a shot. Now, they'd be playing Alabama, but that's so you've got Alabama, UCF. You've got Clemson, Washington. You've got Notre Dame, Ohio State. And you have Oklahoma, Georgia. Oh, my gosh. Can you imagine the ratings for those games? You've covered the whole country. You've covered every conference. And you don't have Clemson, Pittsburgh, Washington, Utah, Oklahoma, Texas, which was a rematch of an earlier game, and Ohio State, Northwestern. The only conference championship that mattered in the playoff system this year was Alabama, Georgia. And unfortunately, it knocked Georgia out. And you could argue that Georgia was the second or third best team in the country. You got to go to 8 teams. I mean, and forget the conference championship games. I like your idea of going. And by the way, the ACC and SEC, they have got to go to 9 games. I totally agree with you. That's got to be part of it.
And they
right
and
they have
and
to
listen,
go to 9 conference games.
Scheduling, they got to get rid of scheduling FCS schools. But who was it? It was Georgia? Was it Georgia this year?
Agreed.
Who was it this year?
Agreed.
Florida?
Totally
Was it Florida? I mean, one of the SEC teams scheduled 2 FCS schools. 2.
Yes. Yeah, you can't have that. And by the way, we need a commissioner of college football.
Okay. I just got a message here saying Nebraska scheduled an FCS school this year too. Okay, let me address that real quick. Yes, okay. Nebraska did schedule an FCS school. Bethune-Cookman from Daytona. They play in Daytona. Yes, they did. But the team that they had scheduled was the Akron Zips, who is a group of 5 team and won the MAC last season. So they were the MAC conference champion. That was the first game. And hold on, they couldn't get any other FBS schools to agree to a game within the season. Now, a lot of these games are a year, 2, 3 years in advance. They had to figure out how to get somebody to agree to play with them on a bye week in season. That was a tremendous. And by the way, the Big Ten has a rule that you can't play FCS schools. They don't allow it. You have to be FBS schools. They have to be FBS schools, and they want you to focus more on Power 5 schools. So they had to get. There was a lot of tape that they had to go through to even get a game scheduled to play.
I get it. Listen, listen though, here, if you go to 9 conference games and you mandate that every Power 5 school has to play an out-of-conference game against another Power 5 team, and I'm okay with then allowing one game against an FCS school because that's how the FCS schools get funded. Okay, I have no problem with that. But you got to play 9 conference games, and you got to play a game against a Power 5 school, a non-conference game against a Power 5 school. Then you get a Group of 5 team that you play. Then you play an FCS school. I have no problem with that. If you go to that system, but the SEC and the ACC are abusing it because they play.
I don't have an issue. Group of 5 schools playing FCS schools. I don't think any Power 5 schools should play FCS. If you're a Power 5 school, you should not be playing FCS. If you're a Group of 5, play FCS.
But Matthew, that's unfair to the system as a whole.
Okay.
Because
you know what? What's unfair to the system as a whole? That the West Coast has a quarter system, and they start school a lot later, so they can literally take guys that are in season and bring them in and transfer over, and use that red shirt that same season, so they don't lose a season of football. They literally went to school at a completely different school for months, practice, learn playbooks, decide I don't want to be there anymore. There are 5 players off Nebraska's team this year. 4 players off Nebraska's team this year transferred from Nebraska before the 4th game and are using that red shirt this season at Oregon State. At Oregon State, the place where the former head coach went back to. And they're eligible to play next year. I'm not mad at them. But the system, college football systems are they're flawed. So we can't sit here and say this is fair. Totally when you have the Big Ten, you have the Pac-12 and the Big 12 all playing 9 conference games, but the ACC and SEC only play 8. That's unfair. When you have the SCS schools all scheduling, they're all scheduling FCS schools the second to last week of the season. That's unfair.
But the committee, no, it's not unfair.
It is, and the committee doesn't weigh into that.
Well, sure they do.
No, they don't.
The thing is, though, that sure they do. Of course they do. Why do you think UCF's 8th and not 4th?
Listen, don't use NCS. No, because they're a Group of 5 school. If that's the case, if you go back again, we did this last year, Kevin. We did this last year. If UCF, USF, Houston, and Memphis would have went to the Big 12 again. I played the scenario out last year. If they would have went to the Big 12, they all played each other. So their schedule, UCF's schedule really wouldn't have changed all that much in the Big 12. You would swap out a few teams here.
What?
It would. Because the 4 teams, 3 of the teams on their schedule, one they played twice, so that's 4 games out of 12. Were the same teams. Would have been the same teams. That's half of their, a third of their schedule would have been the same teams. And then you're lumping in schools like Baylor and stuff like this, Kansas. They would have won. Instead of playing. Wait. But no, let me finish. What I'm saying. Last year.
You didn't give me my time.
Go ahead.
UCF played Austin. So you can't.
Last year.
Played Austin P, South Carolina State, Okay. Connecticut. I mean, come on. Really?
I'm talking about last year. I'm not talking about this year.
Oh, you're talking about last year. I mean,
yes.
That's ancient history, though.
No, it's no, really.
Don't get me wrong.
I'm making my point here.
Listen. Yeah, but you can't. But don't listen. You can't tell me UCF can play Austin Peay, but Alabama can't. Why is that? That's not fair. UCF
in my scenario, what I'm saying is FCS schools are okay for groups of 5 schools because a group of 5 schools don't have an opportunity to be in the playoff system. They really don't. UCF has done enough. I mean, they've literally had to win every freaking game for 2 years to get
I know, but
somewhat of a sniff.
Yes, but I'm talking about if you go to 8, if you go to 8 teams, you're gonna open the door because this year wasn't UCF ranked 8 in the final ranking? They'd have been in, right?
And they're playing in a New Year's Day game against LSU.
Against LSU.
So, World, let me ask you this, Kevin. If they go out and they do what they did against Auburn last year against LSU, is this just LSU didn't care? UCF wanted it more? Why is it okay? So why can UCF go out and get wins against quality teams, but we just kind of they didn't care about it? They didn't care. That's bullshit.
Well, no. I texted you this earlier in the weekend. Bowl games don't matter because
bowl game. You could actually argue if you're from a program's perspective, I could argue bowl games matter a great deal.
Let me finish. No, they don't. Let me finish my statement. Let me finish, Matthew.
Go ahead.
Let me finish. This is real. Different programs have different ways of approaching bowl games. It depends on the makeup of your roster. Depends on how many upperclassmen you have, how many young guys you have that you're trying to groom for next season. Some teams basically say to the seniors, go out, have a good time. This is a reward for your service. And they use the big advantage. The whole reason most coaches want that bowl game is for the extra 2 weeks of practice to prepare for next season. That's it. Now, I don't know how Gus Malzahn handled the Peach Bowl last year, whether or not he really tried against UCF. I don't know. I have no idea. But I can tell you right now that because, depending on the makeup of your roster, if you've got a senior laden roster and you're going into a bowl game, you don't care about the seniors. They're not coming back. You're pointing to next season. But if you're UCF or you're Fresno State or you're Boise State against a Power 5 team, you're trying to make a statement. It's a whole different level of motivation around the bowl games. Outside of the playoffs, the bowl games are a crapshoot from a fan and prognostication standpoint because you don't have any idea what the coach is trying to accomplish. And I tell you one thing: last year UCF was trying to accomplish a lot, and they did, and good for them. And we'll see what happens against LSU this year. Lots of background noise, man.
Was it crunching sounds?
I think we're in agreement. Yes, it is. If you do what we just said, if you go to 9 conference games in every Power 5 conference, do away with divisions, actually do away with conference championship games, go to 8 teams, you're going to have a gold mine of games that first week. And believe me, a UCF or a Houston or a Memphis or a Boise State or a Fresno State is going to get into that playoff. They're going to get in. Because with a 9-game conference schedule for all the Power 5 teams, the chances of one of those teams coming out undefeated, if you'd added, if Alabama this year had to play Kentucky or Missouri or somebody else in addition to the 8 games they played, I'll guarantee you they probably would have put ahead a loss. Because that 9-game schedule, you see it in the Big 12 and in the Pac-12 and the Big 10. They don't go undefeated. Who are the 2 Power 5 conference teams that are undefeated this year? It's Clemson and Alabama, and they're both play 8-game schedules. I agree with you. Total agreement. The Big 10, the Pac-12, and the Big 12, none of them had undefeated teams because they had to play that schedule. You don't get off. You don't get a week off. I like it. Right? I mean, I'm total agreement. And that, if that's the case, I don't mind sneaking an FCS school in there for one of those teams. Especially, listen, have you seen North Dakota State? Oh my gosh! Don't schedule them. Those guys are awesome. I mean, there's some FCS schools that are really good. So, you know, especially if you say against Power 5 teams, you've got to schedule in your 10th game. You've got to schedule another Power 5 team. If that's the case, Power 5 teams are playing Power 5 teams in non-conference games. I have no problem with a 12th game being an FCS team because that schedule is going to be brutal. I mean, the ACC already has, 5 teams already play Notre Dame every year. So they've got 8 conference games in Notre Dame. You got to get Notre Dame into the fold. But the wild card here is the SEC. They have carte blanche to play nobody. You look at those non-conference schedules in the SEC. What a piece of cake! I mean, they're scandalous. I agree with you. I think we're in total agreement. With the exception of a little bit of nuance here and there, but we're in total agreement. Go to 9 games, and I'm pretty sure the SEC is going to be forced. The ACC is already committed to go to 9 games, I believe. A couple of years. They've gone to 20.
No rush.
They've gone to a 20 game. They've gone to a 20 game schedule in basketball. The ACC has. So I think the trend's there. And if you expand to 8 teams, that's the unintended consequence of the 8 teams would be telling the AC and SEC, it's fine. Go to 9 games in conference because with an 18 playoff, you're still going to get a team or 2 in, right? I mean, it all fits together in terms of making everybody happy, and so I think that's going to happen. I said this 2 or 3 years ago, Matthew, on the show, that if the Big Ten gets left out a couple times, you're going to see a real push for 8 teams because they've got the money. The SEC hasn't been left out yet. But as soon as they're left out, you're going to see a major outcry. And they've only been in there because Alabama's been so dominant. But who knows when the SEC gets left out? But I think they're going to start renegotiating for an 8 team. And if ESPN has any brains at all, if Disney has any brains at all, they'll sign up for it. Because I'll tell you, I'll guarantee you, Clemson, Washington, and Notre Dame, Ohio State have a lot more ratings than Pittsburgh and Clemson and Ohio State and Northwestern.
ESPN needs to watch out for DAZN. Have you read or seen anything on DAZN?
No.
So John Skipper, longtime head at ESPN, left.
Yeah, but he left earlier this year.
Yeah, but he's the head of DAZN, DAZN, DAZN. They just signed a multi-year contract with Major League Baseball, multi-fight deal with Canelo Alvarez, who's the top money-making fighter in boxing. They have a contract with Bellator. They've just been rolling through setting up various contracts with leagues. I'm willing to bet that they're going to start trying to challenge for Sunday Night Football or Thursday, or even some of the Sunday games. I, without a doubt, believe that they're going to get into the NCAA.
Yeah, but Skipper was at the helm when ESPN way overpaid for all the crap they're having to deal with now. I mean,
well, here's the problem. I'm going to explain the problem with ESPN. The big thing with ESPN, and they got too far away from what they do good, and what ESPN was the news 24-hour news network for sports. That's what they were. They've gotten so far away from it. They've gotten too much into opinion shows, and they don't allow to be able to cut in and out of stuff like SportsCenter that they can just leave on a 24-hour newsreel. And they just brought in so many opinion shows and stuff like that, and they've got away from the base. It doesn't seem like a news network anymore, as much as it is just a sports entertainment network. And in sports entertainment, they're lacking. They were ahead of the curve when it comes to being able to stream, but they've had to make a lot of changes and stuff in that aspect. But also on the edge of, if they were smart, they would have been in streaming, premium streaming, a while ago, getting people buy into that. By the way, ESPN Plus, which I have, is not worth the money. I have ESPN Plus because it comes with my subscription to ESPN the magazine. It's free with my subscription. So I don't pay any more for it. It just comes with my subscription. It used to be, and by the way, also I got ESPN Insider. So I got Insider, I got ESPN Plus, which is essentially what it is now. Plus includes that. But the games that you get, and the stuff that you get, is the ancillary stuff that you probably weren't watching anyways, and a couple of marquee events that they try to put behind a pay window. They're trying to use part of it as kind of a pay-per-view system. And by the way, ESPN, they do have ESPN pay-per-view now. Because HBO has gotten out of the pay-per-view business for boxing and sports like that. They don't do it anymore. They dissolved that. HBO boxing is gone. A lot of those people have went over to DAZN or to ESPN and continuing careers and stuff there. But ESPN is bleeding money because they're trying to figure out how do they position their asset. So what Disney has done is they're essentially cannibalizing themselves. Disney owns, I think, 80% of Hulu. I think it's up to 80% now with the deal with 21st Century Fox. It's like 80%. They're a majority holder in Hulu. So they're working on coming out with Disney Plus, so you can just subscribe and see Disney stuff. By the way, Disney also has the Vault. So what they did great with Disney movies is Disney movies are pretty much between $20 to $30 all the time. They never go on sale, and then they take them out of circulation. So they'll be in circulation for like 7 years, and then they take it out of circulation until you come out with a new, like now it's 4K. So then they'll bring it back in circulation. They'll bring it out of the vault so you can go buy it again. But other than that, you can't find it. So supply and demand, they control the supply and demand to it. So you'll never be able to have all the movies through a subscription service. But now they have it to where you can buy the movie and get the digital. So that's what I do with all the movies I buy now. I want to make sure there's a digital copy so I can have my digital library. So I can watch them anywhere. I don't have to have all these discs and stuff like that. And I have a pretty massive collection of movies. But what they've done is now it's Disney Plus. They got ESPN Plus. And then they got Hulu. So they want to have an ESPN Plus and a Disney Plus. Disney Plus is supposed to be competing with Netflix. But that's the thing is like, why would you want to compete with Netflix when you already have a business like Hulu that's competing with Netflix? Because that's indirectly competing with Hulu. The smart thing to do is to bring that ESPN Plus content, all the movies, all the rights and fights and games and stuff you have there, plus your Disney stuff, and add them to Hulu. Make your paid subscription to Hulu worth more. You know, instead of cannibalizing yourself. You're trying to get, oh, this people here, this people here, this people here. Because right now, Hulu is more competition. They're competing on one front against Netflix, and on another front against Sling and Fubo and DirecTV Now. And by the way, through my research, out of all the streaming services, DirecTV Now seems to have the best package. But again, you're looking at $55 a month to get your sports channels, you know, the really competitive package. And if you're paying $55 a month and still have to pay for internet, you know, you're looking at a $120 bill anyways. So what does it matter who you pick? They say Sling is a la carte television. Bullshit. It is not. It's the same package system. I had Sling. I got rid of it. I was paying between $47 and $52 a month for Sling. And I still didn't have Big Ten Network. And I still didn't have ESPNU. You know? ESPN News, ESPN3. Like, I still was missing channels that I use and watch a lot. It's just the thing is, it's all pretty much the same stuff. They're just trying to repackage it. But what Disney's problem is now they're cannibalizing themselves. They own so much asset in the market instead of consolidating it and maximizing their benefit in one place. They've got it so fragmented. You got ESPN. That's going to compete with some things with ABC as far as sports go. It's simulcasting, but still they could be competing against each other there. Plus they got the streaming side, which is fine. It's good. It's a necessity to have a live streaming side. But now you got ESPN Plus that's just a streaming side. And you're really not giving any real substance there. You have, you can see all the 30 for 30s and stuff like that there. Old fights that they have for boxing and football and stuff like that. You can go watch them there in full length. They go way back. So it's a vast library of games and sports events you can go back and watch. But as far as live content, It's ancillary games and stuff that nobody really wants to watch. Unless you are a fan or alum of that particular school or team. I mean, it's not worth the money to go buy ESPN Plus. I have it because it comes with my magazine subscription. So there's a lot of things, and then you have the zone coming in. They realize this. So they can go out and pay or overpay for rights to get into the industry and to build up a big portfolio of content. That's what they're trying to do. They know they don't have to compete with HBO on a lot of things now, so they're eating that up. They got Showtime to compete with, and then ESPN. And ESPN doesn't know what they are. And it almost seems like, I don't think Disney should, but it almost seems like at this point they should look at how Disney could look at how to sell ESPN, because right now Disney is mismanaging that asset. The people that have been the figureheads of ESPN have left. Or they've let go. I mean, literally some of the new talent that has been in, they've rejected contract renewals and decided to go elsewhere. I mean, you're always going to have people that'll probably want to go work for ESPN. Like if ESPN offered me a gig writing, I would take it. I don't have a problem with that. I would take that. I would keep doing what I'm doing. But I would take that gig. Yeah, it's money. And it looks good on a resume. And they spend money to get the content out there. Sure, why not? You know, but that's the thing is, that's not not really the argument. Is what are they looking for? How are they trying to benefit from this? I think they're looking in one direction and thinking that this premium channel idea is where it's at, but that's kind of their pitfall to begin with. I think ESPN really overvalued itself about a decade ago with these cable providers. And it has gotten into a lot of trouble with a lot of cable providers. I mean, I think it's what, $12 or something like that a month right now is what they charge. Just for so out of your cable bill, about $12 of your cable bill, whoever you have, doesn't matter if it's Sling, it doesn't matter if it's Comcast or Bright House or Spectrum Charter, whatever the hell it is now, about $12 of that is ESPN. That's their money. They charge that to every subscriber. And then the rest comes into some of the other channels, you know? Like HGTV, I think they charge $4. So, does ESPN have a lot of pull? Yeah, but they want to charge that. And the problem is on top of that, they've overpaid for things like NBA content, which has underdelivered. Super Bowls, or Monday Night Football. Monday Night Footballs have widely underdelivered. You know, it's games that they're not getting the benefit of having, the benefactor of having. You know, they could have been in early on UFC, but they decided not to. They got in late and started to get back into boxing, but for the most part, boxing kind of had left, went to Showtime, and are looking at other various. So now they've brought on different promoters and stuff with boxing that you'll see on ESPN. Right now, it's primarily Top Rank that shows up on ESPN and ESPN Plus, as well as Showtime. But that's the thing is, that's a sport. It's a fickle sport. You'll have promoters that don't get along, so you may not ever see the best two fighters in the world fight because the promoters don't like each other. They just don't want to do business together. That's part of what delayed Pacquiao-Mayweather for so long, because Bob Arum and Floyd Mayweather just didn't see eye to eye. There was money owed. They had history. Before Mayweather fought, the fight before Oscar de la Hoya, Floyd Mayweather was with Top Rank Boxing. He left Top Rank Boxing to work for himself. Was able to negotiate that deal for the Oscar de la Hoya fight, and it just went from there. And Oscar de la Hoya, again, was another top-ranked Bob Arum fighter. Went off in his own way, and he started Golden Boy. So, obviously, they didn't necessarily see eye to eye. There's been issues with Al Heyman, who's with Premier Boxing Champions, and Bob Arum, and Oscar de la Hoya. So you don't see a lot of those fighters. Pretty much they just fight their own fighters against each other. And this is where you see Canelo getting a multi-fight contract to fight on DAZN. And this past weekend he won with a TKO in the third round. The guy took 5 knees he landed, I think, 37 body punches. The guy he tapped. Third round. It was the most lopsided championship fight. Again, he went up in weight to become the WBA super middleweight champion. But, again, ESPN, they're going to do what they're going to do. I don't think they're going to have the capital to keep a lot of things going, because the business they're in, a lot of it is buying rights. And you have Amazon, you have Netflix, you have Google, you have Twitter, you have these these tech giants, these internet medium giants, now coming in and trying to compete against media organizations, media, sports, entertainment organizations. They just don't have the funds. Because their overhead that they have, quote-unquote overhead they have in rights that they've bought that they're not getting the returns on, has squandered away. ESPN should look at how do we become the easiest to watch and the easiest to stream. Like, if ESPN could have taken a model for ESPN and just left as ESPN and put it on cable with CBS, with ABC, with Fox. See, Fox is smart. Fox has, if you want to watch a football game, a national football game, you can watch the NFC games, which are on Fox, for free. You don't even have to have cable. You can literally just buy an antenna, a cheap $15, $30 antenna one time. You pay it, you stick it in a window. Even at the high end, you pay $100 for an antenna that goes 75 miles out. You put it in your attic, and you got like 60-something channels, including Fox, CBS, NBC, ABC. If ESPN would have just left ESPN, the news organization, on cable, and then ESPN2 or ESPN Plus or ESPN Premium, or ESPNU, and took those and put those up on premium cable or Plus, their paid version, where you have to pay more for, they would have a lot more room and they would get a lot more dollars. But no, they took. I have a trouble when you go to these news outlets, and then you get there and they're like, "You want to read the article? You want to read the news? Pay us." Okay, good. I get you want to get money, but in my opinion, I don't think the best way to spread news is to have it behind a pay window. That's why we don't charge on our site. That's why you don't have to pay to subscribe to this radio show or to watch our television streaming version. You don't pay for it. It's on Facebook. It's on YouTube. Places that are free. And ESPN's model has went away from that. From jump. They've overvalued themselves and overextended promises to ad buyers. And with bowl games and NFL playoff games and Monday Night Football and March Madness, they've fallen short to advertisers, and they've had to pay money back. They've lost money, having to pay back. So again, and I'm just going to circle back here. Like I said, and Kevin had to go. But with this college football system, expanding it to 8, I think it should be 6. I think it's the better fit. It would be 6. But 8 is, I don't have an issue with 8 either. But you don't want to go beyond 8. Your 8-team playoff this year would, again, you would see Alabama playing UCF. I don't think UCF this year beats Alabama. Alabama generally comes prepared to win wherever it is, especially if they have a game after that. You'd see Clemson and Michigan. See, that game, in a sense, could benefit Clemson. Because in one hand, they're a lot more similar and even better in a lot of aspects than Ohio State. So I would say they'd be favorites in that game. Notre Dame against Ohio State. Notre Dame, who generally plays up or down to the competition, have managed to win every game this season, playing against an Ohio State team. It's been widely inconsistent, and pretty much its last 8 games of the year have struggled outside the Michigan game and the conference championship game. And Oklahoma versus Georgia, which seems like the most appealing bowl game to watch. I actually think, with our actual Final Four, is Alabama, Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma beats Alabama in that game. And the real Final Four this year, Clemson and Notre Dame. I see Clemson beating Notre Dame. But I think it's going to be a lot closer of a game than anybody thinks. So, essentially, the national championship would be Oklahoma versus Clemson, which seems to be a wildly entertaining game because you have 2 young, very capable quarterbacks, 2 quality offenses and run games, and 2 And one having a very talented and quality defense, and the other a very underestimated and underappreciated defense in Oklahoma. You know, teams, you know, I know that the NFL is trending towards college. I've said that for years. Yeah, it is. And I said, you know, like with the quarterback position, either the NFL is going to have to accept change and start working around guys that play the college style, the spread, RPOs, option, you know, where they had this multi-dimensional component to the quarterback, and adapt to that type of player because that's what's coming out of college. Or you're just going to have bust after bust after bust after bust after bust. Listen, I don't think Tim Tebow is or was a good NFL quarterback. He had no business in the first round of the draft. I don't think he had any business in the second round of the draft. The third, fourth round, fifth, third, fourth, fifth, I think that's appropriate. That was more appropriate for what his skill set was to the NFL. Now, if he's in today's NFL, where they're looking at RPOs, and how can we build the offense to run similar to what you did in college, because essentially that's what Dak Prescott is. I don't think that he's much better than Tim Tebow. I think he is better. He is a little better, but he's not much different than Tim Tebow. He's a little bit of an upgrade from what that is. But the Cowboys have invested in playing essentially this old school this SEC brand of football. Hunker down, stout defense. You run the ball with your feature back, and you throw a lot of passes that are within 15 yards. And that's pretty much the SEC. That's what you see. High percentage shots when they throw. Again, the SEC doesn't ask the quarterbacks to be highly talented. Tua Tagovailoa is an exception. Well, how come you got guys like, okay, Locke. Okay. Will Grier. Yeah, okay, Will Grier was at Florida. All right. And now he's at West Virginia. I don't get your point. What are you saying? The SEC has quarterbacks. Okay, great. They've had people, of course, they've recruited lots of guys that are talented at quarterback. You know? But aren't NFL starters. Can't. Listen. Until, and I honestly think the way it is, if you're an organization, the best way to have the most effective investigations and doling out punishment, the best way to do it is have a third party that is fully invested into and focused on that. See, that's why a lot of top call centers in the country divvy out their quality control portion of it to a third party. because this way they can be impartial. They can monitor every phone call. They can grade, their customer service staff and telemarketers and stuff based on those calls and hold them to standards. Different ways than a business can. Again, a business is less likely to fire somebody because they have a vested interest in that process because they've hired and yada, yada, yada. And the process of quality control is expensive. Hire a third party that does nothing but that. You cut some cost on it, and you improve quality. And it comes with some more improved training. What the NCAA needs to do is they need to have a portion of their governing body that doles out punishment. But also, they need to have a separate committee that is for rules. They need to have a deadline the way the NFL does, the way the pro sports do, that you can't make any trades after this date. They did that with the new rule for transferring. But unfortunately, they say from the time you enroll in school in fall semester. But if you have a quarter system, you can go in the second quarter of the year, still be within the first semester, and still qualify for that season. It's an unfortunate loophole. But West Coast teams have a significant advantage to reel in transfer players because of the way they're allowed to bring in transfers in season or just before season starts, and their red shirt be able to count for that season. I mean, it's great for the athlete. But if you look at the teams and programs that have, again, when you look at, like I said, for example, if you hire somebody, right? You go in and hire. You're hiring an employee. Well, first of all, you probably have a human resource person or a manager that you're paying to look for people. That's significant time and hours. There are people in businesses, small family-owned businesses, that their only job to do is to find new people to work at that business, to call on resumes, to set up appointments, to conduct interviews, to do staffing. I know because I've been in that position with family-owned businesses and others. And then, once you decide, okay, I like this person enough that I want to tentatively offer them a job. Well, now you got to send it to go do background. Some cases, credit checks. Some, you have to drug screening. And the businesses usually pay for that. And you'd be surprised the amount of people that know damn well that they can't pass a drug test, telling you that they can, and going and taking it anyways. Just throwing money down the drain. The cost to acquire talent is at a premium. And on top of that, there's continuing pressure to push up the minimum wage and pay people more. But yet, inflation continues to go up as well. People think they need to be paid more because they can't buy as much with what they make. So the issue really isn't what you make. The issue is what you can buy with what you make. If the inflation comes down and you can buy more with what you make now, what does it matter how much you make? You don't need to make more. It's like gas. If at $3 a gallon, like for example, near $3 a gallon, I pay $38. I think $38 to fill up, to put my workhorse car I drive the most is a Prius, a hybrid Prius. It's like $38 to fill up at like $2.80, $2.95, whatever, right? But at $2 a gallon, it's like $20, $18 to fill up a full tank. It's a significant difference in cost. But because I can save $10, $18, whatever it is, per tank, that's money I can go allocate for formula or for shoes for kids or to loan to a friend or put it towards a different rental property, an investment property. You see, if you make things, consumer goods and services, more affordable, people don't need to make more per hour because they can get more without making more. And with the system that you have now, with college football, there's an unfair advantage because you have some conferences that have 9 conference games. So that means 9 teams of that quality. And if you're a Power 5 school, that means you have at least 9 Power 5 games on your schedule. So that leaves you 3 out-of-conference games a year to play. And some conferences don't allow FCS schools, but yet conferences like the ACC and the SEC only play 8 conference games and will play multiple FCS schools. The fact is, there isn't an even playing field when it comes to scheduling, when it comes to the transfer rule, when it comes to, in a sense, qualifying for the playoffs. Oklahoma, who is, as you know, is playing on December 29th against Alabama in the Capital One Orange Bowl. It's a college football playoff semifinals. They started the season off against a group of 5 team in FAU who won their conference, the Sun Belt Conference, last year. Or Conference USA, last year. Then played Power 5 school in UCLA. And then they went in conference. And then they had a conference game and a tough game with Iowa State, who beat them last year. Another Power 5 school in Army. Baylor, Texas, TCU, K-State, Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, Kansas. By the way, Kansas That game was 55-40. They won by 2 scores over Kansas. Highly competitive. West Virginia, they won by 3 points. Texas, they lost the first game. That was the only game they've lost all year. 48-45. They lost by 3. Then they won by 2 scores. 39-27 in the conference championship. Again, that conference championship game is completely necessary. Because at the time, they were both 7-1 in conference. And Texas had a tiebreaker over them. And in that case, if they don't play a conference championship game, the Texas Longhorns are the Big 12 champions. So I think it is completely necessary to have conference championship games. Now, the conferences themselves make a bundle off that. They do. They need that. So I'm not a proponent of getting rid of the conference championship game. Again, you have 12 in-season games. You got a conference championship. Takes you to 13. And then you got your playoffs. I don't think moving to 8 is that critical.
90 seconds.
We got about 60 seconds left on the Blog Talk Radio side before we go to the overtime there. So if you have a little under a minute if you want to call into the show, 347-237-5539. I don't give out the phone number too often. 347-237-5539. That's the number.
60 seconds.
Or you can get in over on Facebook Live. Type in your question or comment, whatever it is, over there. Or I see a lot of you are listening over on the Spreaker app, listening live over on Spreaker. If you don't have that app right now, go get the app. Spreaker. Spreaker. It's like speaker with an extra R. The logo's a little gold star. Go download it from wherever you get your apps from. It's a free app. You can listen to the full show unabated. You don't have to worry about going into overtime. Or you can listen to the full show, including overtime on Blog Talk Radio for whatever portion or all the show that we've aired over on Facebook, on Spreaker, on SoundCloud, on iTunes, wherever you listen, you can go over to thechtonsports.com, thechtonsports.com, our website. Click on the listen live link or listen link in the upper left-hand corner. Listen there to all the shows, even the Boxing Source is up there. And Take This L show. So, a lot to listen to. And we're not going to be going on the show. Tonight's going to be a short show. We're not going to go all the way. We started a little late tonight. We had some technical difficulties earlier in the show, so we got about 10 minutes or so left in the show. Kevin was going to talk about golf too. So he has an article up over on the website, so definitely go over to thechtonsports.com and check out his article, his PGA article for the 2019 season coming up. Over there, it's a golf 2018 in review. He has a review up. Also, I put up an article this week as well. You can see some of the swag from these bowl games. And I'm going to go through that real quick. That's a really cool article, by the way. So I actually got it up over there, and you can see exactly what all these teams are getting in a bowl game. So let's start with, let me see here. Okay, so for example, why is it not there? Is this? Oh, that's the schedule. Sorry, I clicked on the wrong article. Okay, bowl swag. Here we go. Okay, so for example, for the game that's on right now, the Boca Raton Bowl, UAB, Northern Illinois. It's over now, but they got a gift suite, drawstring backpack, beach towel, and game football, commemorative football. And what they've been doing is these gift suites. The gift suite, and actually some of them, they set them up on campus. Sometimes they have where they can set it up. They set it up at the head of the venue, ahead of the event at the venue. But it allows the players to go in and pick and choose what they want. The NCAA allows these committees, because every bowl game has a committee, right? So the college football playoff national championship game, is one part. They got a committee for that. Basically, every football bowl subdivision game has a committee. They have bowl committees. So the Auto National Cure Bowl that was played in Orlando that has a committee. That committee decided that the players will get Holloway Force jackets, sunglasses with carrying case, Energizer power pack, a duffel bag, Pebble Beach sliders, DOP kit. I honestly don't know what that is. Sports Tech long sleeve contender t-shirt and a cap. They played on December 15th at 1:30 in Orlando. And that was the swag they got, just for being involved. And what the NCAA does is they allowed the combined max value of $550 worth of gifts that these college football bowl committees are allowed to provide to each of the participants of the BCS games. Some of them, like, even you got some of them giving away PlayStations. Like the national championship game, last couple of years, has been sponsored by PlayStation. Even at Media Day, they actually had PlayStation set up for players to play. So, where they weren't getting interviewed, they'd be over on the sticks. So I've seen guys playing like NBA NBA, NBA Live, Madden. What else was over there? Some racing game. I don't know. Never played it. Whatever game it was. I'd have to go back and look. But there are players over there playing video games at Media Day. But some of the guys actually, you get a console. If the console's only $2.99, you can get consoles and other swag too. So, again, I wasn't able. There's some outfits didn't share what they were giving. Like the national championship game, they wouldn't disclose what it would be. So I can't say. The Sugar Bowl, they have a gift suite where they go get to pick out some swag. Now, they would also get a Fossil watch, New Era cap, Rock Them socks, and some cufflinks that were game revolving around the game. Same thing with the Rose Bowl, presented by Northwestern Mutual. Again, gift suite, Fossil watch, Orego backpack, a New Era, a 940 adjustable hat. So, for the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl, every participant that plays for LSU or UCF on New Year's Day at 1 o'clock on ESPN, they will every player, every participant in the Fiesta Bowl will receive a PlayStation 4 gift pack. So they got the PlayStation 4 and other stuff to go with it. I'm not done. A Fossil watch with engraved case back. An Ogio X Fit backpack. They get that. All that. So they got, like I said, some get the game console and swag. That's the situation at the Fiesta Bowl. The Citrus Bowl, for example, Kentucky, Penn State. They will all get a $400 Best Buy gift card, a Fossil watch, backpack with a luggage tag. The Outback Bowl in Tampa, Mississippi State, Iowa. They'll be rocking a Fossil watch, Jostin's ring, $125 gift card from Best Buy, Outback Steakhouse gift card, and a cap or hat. Again, that was just a few of them. So you can go through, just go over to the CHTonsports.com. I got all of them up over there. What they're getting. If I was able to get the information, I put it up there. And you could see one photo. The photo I had was actually provided by the Peach Bowl. So you can see the Echo Dot that they're getting there. You can see the Mophie Charger / I think it's actually a drive. What do they call it? Memory drive. They got a $350 vanilla gift card, an Amazon Echo Dot. I said that, little speaker, the third generations. They get a football. And the watch, it comes with, it's pretty cool. It's the main picture up on the page. You see the watch, and you see the Peach Bowl, the box, you know. It's a pretty cool little get up there, what they're getting from them. So, go check that out over on the website. All right, I'm going to get back into what we were talking about as far as the NFL. And just go over the playoff picture standings here real quick. What we have to look forward to this week. Again, doesn't look like at this point at 9-5 that they're going to be able to secure home field advantage. The Patriots are going to be able to secure home field advantage. With the Chiefs and Chargers both clinching playoff spots at 11-3, they're the two teams that are going to be likely fighting for home field advantage. So we're going to be the two. Because right now, what we're looking at is the Chiefs would hold home field advantage right now. So wins, they win tiebreaker with Los Angeles based on the best winning percentage. So if them and the Chargers come down to it, they have a better winning percentage. This is a tiebreaker. Right now, the Chiefs are a number 1 seed. The number 2 seed is the Texans at 10-4. The Patriots at number 3 at 9-5. The Steelers at 8-5-1 are 4 seed. So the 5 seed is the Chargers. They've already clinched. The Baltimore Ravens are looking at the 6th seed right now. They win a tiebreak over Indianapolis based on the best winning percentage in conference games. Division tie breaks with initially used to eliminate Tennessee. Indianapolis wins tiebreak over Tennessee based on a head-to-head win percentage. So that's where you got that there. So that's where Baltimore is taking that. That's how they're breaking the tie there for the 6th seed. Indianapolis is sitting in the 7th spot. And they could win. They win a tiebreaker over Tennessee based on head-to-head winning percentage. Again, Tennessee is at 8-6. They're at 2nd in their division at 8-6. And that is the 8th spot. Now, the Dolphins are sitting at 9. The Browns, 10. Again, so they just take it's the top 8 from each of his 16 teams. So teams are that's what I'm saying with the Bucs. The number 8 team is 7-7. 7-7. The Bucks finished 5-9. They actually have tiebreaker. They had tiebreakers over Detroit and New York based on best winning percentage in conference games. That's what at number 12. That's why the Bucks are 12 and not 13 or 14. The Bucks have 2 games left. They can end 7-9. Right now, the Panthers are 6-8, and they're a game out. The Eagles and Redskins are both 7-7. Just ahead. Ahead of them right now. The Bucks right now. Just ahead of them is the Falcons, which is their last game of the year. The Falcons are in the 11th spot. The Packers are in the 10th spot. They play the Dallas Cowboys this week at 8-6. The Cowboys are leading their division. They win their division, they're in. But they're only a game ahead of Washington and Philly in the standings. So there's not as many teams in it as last week, but there is still, with only 2 weeks left in the NFL, a good number of teams that are still in it. Because there's a lot of teams that have between 8 to 6 wins. Miami is 7-7. They're only 2 games out right now of first place. The Patriots should win their last 2 games, coming against Buffalo and the New York Jets. Miami, again, 2 games back. If they win out and the Patriots lose out, pretty sure the Patriots would have a slight advantage over them because of the in-conference win percentage. But the Dolphins finish out their last 2 games of the season against the Jaguars and Bills. Neither team are ahead of them in the playoffs. Could very well be wins. The Dolphins look like they could, at 9-7, very much make it in. Again, right now, they're a game out. Tennessee, they finished the season with the Redskins and the Colts. The Colts look like they're definitely headed in the right direction. They have one of the rookie, Nelson, their first-round draft pick, is a Pro Bowler as a rookie. Baltimore, who's ahead of both of them, 8-6, essentially almost tied. And Pittsburgh is 8-5-1, so 1 less loss, but they have a tie, so they're ahead of them. Baltimore finishes their season out with the Chargers and the Browns. 2 games that are very losable for Baltimore. Cleveland has Baltimore to end the season, like I said, but also as the Bengals. A team that they beat just a few weeks ago by more than 2 scores. 15. Beat them by 15. So, winnable game there. They could win out. If they win out, if the Browns win out, and they end up 8-7-1, and Pittsburgh, who finishes against the Saints and the Bengals, they lose both of those games. I mean, we're looking at a tie. There's no see here. They beat the Browns the second time around, so they would have the nod over them. So Pittsburgh would be in. So if Pittsburgh loses out and the Browns win out, Pittsburgh Steelers win the division. But the Browns would likely be in the playoffs. Baltimore would be out because they'd have another loss. They would finish 9-7. So, just the number of combinations and way to look at this is amazing. But, see what else do I got here for you. I had a request for an injury update for this weekend. All right. Week 16 report for today. So valued guys that either the teams have. Terrell Suggs did not practice, not injury related. Alex Lewis with his shoulder limited in practice for the Ravens. The Chargers, Keenan Allen did not practice due to hip. Melvin Gordon, however, did practice, and he was limited. So that's something that Chargers fans are looking forward to. For Redskins fans, Colt McCoy did not practice. Neither did Monte Nicholson. That wasn't injury related, so it's not going to be. And Jordan Reed didn't practice because of his ankle foot injury. Limited in practice, though. He did see Adrian Peterson limited in practice, as well as Trent Williams limited in practice. So those are 2 pieces that they're happy to see back and going. Josh Johnson, he had a little issue with the ankle. He had a full practice. So no worries there. With the Titans, Brian Arakpo did not practice because of an elbow, and David Florin was limited due to the knee. So, as well as Kenny Vaccaro from a concussion. So he was limited in practice as well. So those are the few teams that are available they have for today's injury report. But and that's the thing. So today, there weren't many notable changes. Chris Jones was he was signed from the practice squad for Arizona, a defensive back. So he's a guy to keep an eye on, as well as Diedrich Nichols, defensive back for USF. He was signed from the practice squad for Arizona as well. So they have a defensive backfield that has added on some more depth. Jeremy Langford, who spent time in Chicago, he was signed from the practice squad from the Falcons. So, a couple of notable guys there. Alabama running back Joe Scarborough was signed to Seattle from the Jacksonville Jaguars practice squad. The Bucks bring in tight end Donnie Emmenberger, kid out of Western Michigan, from their practice squad. Just trying to see what else is notable here. Alright, there's not much else going on here. Practice squad transactions. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and close out the show there for this week. Be sure to tune in next week. See if we'll have Kevin back this week. Well, actually, next week, like I said, because of when because Christmas Eve is on Christmas Day is on Tuesday, we'll look at next week potentially doing the show on either Wednesday or Thursday. And then there will not be a show on the 1st, on New Year's Day. There will not be a show. So the next show, we're not going to do one that week either. So the next show after that wouldn't be till... Well, we might do one on the 1st. We'll double check, see if we got that on the 1st. If not, the 8th. So, but that will do it for tonight. Thank you all for tuning in and following us here. I appreciate it very much. Go ahead and check out the website, the CHT on Sports. Follow the show at the CHT on Sports on social media. You can find me and follow me at Matt Long Sports. That's all I got for tonight. I'm out. Peace.